What is the best powertrain for a high-end luxury car? Is it a V8 petrol engine or is it an electric motor?
Okay, so this is just a video, Bentley V8 versus Rolls-Royce EV. Rolls-Royce EV, you know, they've made the switch, and that's how you know that things are really stepping forward in terms of, you know, electric. You know, all the cars are going electric now. Rolls-Royce, all of these heritage brands, they're all jumping ship to electric. It's just where the world's heading. So let's see, does charging ruin luxury? Let's see.
That's what we're going to be finding out today, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for lots more videos like this, most of which involve more sensibly priced cars.
Alright, let's go.
So John, traditionally in a high-end luxury car like a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley, you'd find an 8 or even a 12-cylinder petrol engine, wouldn't you?
You would, and that is because a V8 or a V12 is a very inherently balanced engine, and that means it's very quiet and very smooth, but also they're very torquey low down, which means that they're very effortless to build speed with, which makes the driving very relaxed and easy. But isn't an electric motor, or even a couple of them, an even better fit? Because we know electric cars are very quiet because there isn't an endless series of explosions going on under the bonnet, and that means there should be even fewer vibrations being felt by the passengers inside.
Yes, and to find out the answer, we've lined up a V8 powered Bentley Bentayga and a fully electric Rolls-Royce Spectre.
Okay, so ICE videos, vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, yeah, as you know, kind of they need to be ignited in order to start. You know, there are like hundreds of thousands of little explosions happening within the car in order to get those cogs turning, to get that power sort of like there. But with electricity, you just put your foot down and you're off. So, you know, that's exactly what they're talking about. But, you know, as brands step away from like petrol diesel engines into like electric, it is a bit of a risk because, you know, you're changing the whole, you're adding another piece to the story, to the layering of the brand. You know, so only time will tell if these brands will still be seen as luxury, with them having gone to electric. But it should in theory make them more comfortable, because they should be quieter, and the power should be coming in a more quiet and instant fashion as well. So that'd be interesting to see.
And before anyone starts leaving angry comments below, we are fully aware these aren't direct rivals. The Bentayga is of course a huge SUV, and the Spectre is an enormous coupe. And incidentally, these aren't just two of the biggest cars on the road. That Bentayga is about 5.3 metres long, and this Spectre measures almost 5.5 metres from bumper to bumper. They are also two of the most expensive, costing well over £250,000 each. So the aim here is not to decide
so expensive, right,
if a Bentayga is a better car than a Spectre, or vice versa. It is mainly to find out if big capacity petrol engines or electric motors are a better choice for huge money no object cars with a big focus on luxury. Anyway, what's the plan today, John?
Well, we've just set off from our offices in Twickenham, southwest London, and we're going to be doing around 200 miles today, most of which will be on the motorway. And that will give us a good opportunity to find out what these cars are like to drive, are they quiet at a cruise, and also how efficient they are in the real world. And with that information, we'll be able to realistically tell you how many miles you're going to get out of a fully charged battery in that Spectre, and also how many miles you'll get from this Bentayga with a fully brimmed tank.
Sounds good. And because these are such high-end luxury cars, it would be rude not to take a good look at their interiors as well, wouldn't it? So should we do that when I meet you at the midway point for some lunch?
I mean, it makes sense. I think, you know, I don't think they're going to come to any like surprising conclusions. I think, you know, if in theory the electric vehicle should just win in terms of speed, efficiency, in terms of comfort as well. Where it might lose is there's other bits of comfort, like heating, for example. So on a cold day, probably going to use, the heated seats, the internal heating functionality, and it's just going to be it's going to take up more charge in order to warm up the car. So there's stuff like that, heating steering wheel, it's all going to take up more energy, and I don't know how many kind of gadgets exist within the car as well, or if those would waste electricity as well. So, and there's range anxiety, but I'd assume that, if you are creating an electric Rolls-Royce, that you would at least think of, okay, range anxiety, let's make the range on this as good as possible. I mean, your Rolls-Royce, like, let's don't create a Rolls-Royce with 200 range,
Now, John, we've already mentioned these are completely different cars.
They are.
Obviously different body styles. And although there might be some cross-shopping, if you want a very opulent car and you want one of the most prestigious badges on the nose of it, but clearly you're not going to buy a two-door coupe, even a massive one like this, if you want to put people in the back regularly, and neither are you if you want an easy-to-access boot with a hatchback. So let's park those very obvious differences and let's focus instead what it's like to sit in the front of these cars. And in this Rolls-Royce, it is incredibly luxurious, isn't it?
It is very nice, isn't it? And I have to say, I do like the fact that the modern generation of Rolls-Royces have always had this Art Deco theme, and they've stuck with it, and it still looks as good as it did when it first came out on the Phantom.
It really does. And when you're buying a Rolls-Royce, you don't just get an interior, you curate
Really?
your own.
Have you created this one?
I haven't. Someone at Rolls-Royce's press office has, and they have gone for seashell, the colour here on the centre console and on the lower.
That is beautiful. I mean, look at that. That is stunning. They've done a great job there.
Part of the dashboard, on the outer parts of the seats, moccasin.
Like my slippers?
Yeah, exactly like those. On the central armrest here, on the central parts of the seats and on the insides of the doors. And then there is also peony pink, which is the highlight for the piping on the seats here and the stitching on the centre console and on top of the dashboard there. It's not going to be to everyone's taste. Neither is the colour on the outside, which I believe is called Velvet Orchid. You've also got open pore effect here. And overall, it is incredibly luxurious in here.
I like the fact you got it on the steering wheel as well.
Yeah, it's a nice touch, isn't it? Actually, the steering wheel is very nice to hold as well. It's quite big, but the rim isn't too thick, so it's very nice to hold when you're driving along. Obviously, we'll drive this car properly in a few minutes.
Let's skip past all of this faff. I want to see what they're actually saying. I don't want to go through interiors. Let's go to the end. Let's see cost and efficiency.
Okay, so let's start with the cost of the journey in both cars. And I spent £85 and 5p because I needed 95.6 kilowatt hours of electricity to get the Spectre's battery back up to 100%, and I used a really expensive grid serve charger for the job, so I was paying 89p per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
If I'd have charged at home at the current energy price cap of around 25p per kilowatt hour, then I would have spent £23.50.
Look at that. Look at the difference there. And this is why I always advocate for, getting a home EV charger if you're able to, because look at the difference. It would have cost him £23.58, where it's cost him £85 and 5p. Just such a staggering difference. Just by having the EV charger at home, the cost per kilowatt hour is just so much less at home. And to add to that, if you're charging overnight, you're going to benefit from the off-peak tariffs and all of that. So it's just a no-brainer if you're able to do it. And I can't wait until they have these curb gullies and all of that, so that I'm able to, I wouldn't have to worry about getting an EV, because I don't have a drive. So I could drive on the road and have my curb gullies sort of like over the, anyway.
58p, and obviously even less than that if I was signed up to a cheap overnight tariff. But how does that compare with your V8 Bentayga?
Well, the mighty V8 needed 36.61 litres of petrol at a cost of £1.57 per litre. So I spent a total of £57.44.
Much less.
But because we finished at a motorway services, I was obviously paying top whack for that fuel. And based on the average price of fuel today, now obviously prices are pretty volatile at the moment with what's going on in the Middle East, but I'd have spent £52.21.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad he said that. You know, prices are really volatile at the moment with what's going on in the Middle East. So it kind of like gives even more of a reason if you're getting an EV charger if you're getting an electric vehicle to get an EV charger at home. I mean, the price is probably going to go up on that as well, but it's still going to be less than paying publicly. It's still going to, you're paying full whack at the moment, so yeah.
So it was actually quite a bit cheaper on the day to make the journey in your Bentley. And what was your fuel economy like?
Well, the trip computer was claiming 22.3 mpg at the end of the...
But remember, with the Rolls-Royce, it was £85. With the Bentley, it's 50 something pounds, and it would have been £25 with the Rolls-Royce. So what's that, like a quarter, sort of like a quarter of the price? So imagine if he had the same sort of like opportunity that he had with the Rolls-Royce. What's a quarter of 50? 10, 15, can't count, 50, something like that, 15, 17 quid, you know. Wicked, amazing.
196 mile journey, but when you work out the actual litres of fuel we used to get an accurate reading, then the average economy rises slightly to 24.3 mpg. No, okay, I know that's not amazing in the grand scheme of things, but I don't think too bad for a big V8 Bentley, especially as we were mostly driving on the motorway.
Okay, well, my trip computer was showing 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour at the end of the journey, but when you charge an EV, you will always lose some energy. So based on the kilowatt hours that we pulled from the grid, my efficiency drops to 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour, and that isn't very good at all, really.
No, not really.
But if you're spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on a luxury car like this, then you're probably not going to care too much about your running bills. But you probably will care about your time, and that's where your Bentley has a massive advantage, doesn't it?
It does, because I use less than half a tank of fuel for the entire trip.
You know, the second-hand market for Teslas is booming, so you could probably get a Tesla for 20 grand. It could do potentially twice the distance. So, you know, once again, we're kind of like in this stalemate, because why would you want to spend 250 grand on something that isn't going to give you the range? I mean, that's a massive faux pas. You know, if anything, I would have just waited until we got the technology to reach to get more miles out of it, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not really sure about that.
And remember, if you're on a long journey and you're charging to 80% and then plugging in again when you get down to 20%, you're going to be stopping every 130 miles or so. So that's about 6 stops just for charging to get you from London down to Saint-Tropez.
That's crazy, and it's not exactly like the Spectre's that quick to charge either.
Well, these things are relative. So it can pull 195 kilowatts of power from a fast enough charging point, which is a lot more than, say, a Renault 5. But it's also a lot less than a £60,000 BMW iX3, which can charge at speeds of 400 kilowatts. Now,
I'm going to stop the video there. I think, well, let's see what it's going to say.
On paper, the Spectre can go from 10 to 80% in about 35 minutes. And we were plugged in to a really fast 400 kilowatt charger. And guess how long I was waiting?
Well, I don't know, 35 minutes.
Exactly 35
really?
minutes.
Oh, okay.
So it proves sometimes these times are accurate. And the full 11 to 100% charge took 1 hour and 8 minutes. Although obviously charging speeds really do slow down as you get beyond 90% and you're not.
So not only the range ain't great, but you'd have to be waiting to charge that as well. Now, presuming that you're away from home charging at a public station, waiting an hour.
You're going to sit around waiting for the battery to get to full, and it's not recommended to charge most EVs to 100% regularly anyway.
No, that's true, but the thing is, if you think about it, is a Rolls-Royce owner really going to want to stop for more than half an hour every 130 miles?
No, they're not. They're not going to want to stop at all.
And then hang around in some grotty motorway services or, I don't know, a McDonald's car park and potentially have to queue waiting around with the rest of the people for a charging spot?
Probably not. And for me, charging is the biggest hurdle for luxury EVs like this, because however brilliant the car is to drive and however lovely the interior is, I can't think of many experiences less glamorous than hanging around waiting for your EV to charge.
And I agree. I totally agree. I think that's a massive I think that's a massive letdown for the kind of like EV charging market, for the EV market, for the high end EV market. Why would you want to spend 250k on a car that doesn't go that far? That takes a long time to charge. Let's say you are, you're touring, you're driving a long distance away from home. You have to stop in a service station for over an hour to wait for your luxury EV to charge, and that's if one of the public chargers are available. If some person hasn't just parked there, just because it's quite a lot to contend with. You know what I mean? We're just not there yet. Hopefully we'll get there soon.
And a longer range or faster charging would obviously help a bit, but it wouldn't get to the root cause of the problem.
No. And when you think about it, Tesla reserves some of its supercharging spots for Tesla drivers, don't they? So you would think that Rolls-Royce could do something similar with the Spectre, because at the moment you've got no priority over an MG4 driver or Kia EV4 driver, and who's just nabbed the last charger. So I appreciate Rolls-Royce isn't going to do the same as Tesla and roll out a charging network across the country for a handful of Spectres, but you'd think they could do a deal with a charging provider to do some sort of concierge service, maybe, to be able to phone up en route and reserve a charging spot of a VIP area. Get someone to, I don't know, pop along and unravel the charging cables for you and hand a couple of cucumber sandwiches through the window, that kind of thing.
Plummeted the price of it, so I think you can get a Porsche Taycan for like 40k. I think so, but yeah, that is a massive issue. It just seems like you're buying a luxury vehicle, the Rolls-Royce, and you're just not being looked after. That's how I'd feel. Spent £250,000 on a vehicle, not to be able to be prioritised in any sort of way. Que sera, sera.